Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 13th, 2020 meeting of the Grafton Affordable Housing Trust. So first, a couple items I want to just let everyone know about, specifically our new folks, and if you haven't heard, it looks like we do have a new town planner. I think there was an email sent out yesterday, a day or so ago, to there's a meet and greet tomorrow. I don't know if I can make it. I've got a meeting at 7:30 in the morning, the chamber meeting, so I'm going to try to make it. You'll probably be there too. So I'm going to try to swing by too. I don't know, but his name is Christopher McGoldrick. So that's a big change. And so right now we're sort of sifting in through what the staffing situations would be. Natalia is helping. So we're just trying to keep in touch with her and stay on top of things in this transition. The other major issue is that about 2 weeks ago, I was invited to a meeting here at Town Hall with the town administrator, assistant town administrator, a few other town officials, and the owner of the Fisherville Mill site in South Grafton, to discuss how the Affordable Housing Trust could work in conjunction with the town and for that development. So that was kind of the reason that we pressed to have this meeting, because there's some information that we need to kind of come to an understanding of, or at least an agreement of. If we can do that tonight, that would be really important. We'll see. So that may take most of this meeting. So a couple items we may not get to here, but so that's one of the main issues. We're going to table the November minutes. I think what we'll do is just make mention that there was no substantive. We'll make a small set minutes that'll just say no. I don't know if we didn't have a quorum, if we had nothing substantive to vote on. Just it was pretty routine, and you can go off the agenda for whatever we used there. Before we jumped into more of the discussion on Fisherville Mill and other developments, I kind of just want to bring everybody back to the review we got from Joe. And I don't know that much has changed here. I think we did get an updated one, but it's not that different. So there is, and I don't know, Jen, if you've probably seen this, or maybe aware of it. We have Joe presented a report, and this report that they can make for us that shows our subsidized housing inventory, or SHI. And the SHI is the figure that counts towards our 10% goal for 40B, to develop 10% affordable housing. It's a part of our mission. It's not our whole mission, but it's part of our mission to try to get to that point. And it affects affordability throughout the town, even for those who aren't eligible for affordable housing. Currently, we're just hovering over 5%, and there's a lot of development that could be happening. And the potential developments that Joe had laid out earlier were Grafton State Hospital over behind the train station. It's 8 Pine Street. There's another one on Westboro Road, and then Fisherville Mill. And the Fisherville Mill site is something that's been in discussion for years. I think I met the developer, the owner, when I came on. I met him through the Blackstone Valley Chamber of Commerce like 10 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, something to that effect. And he has actually been in front of the Affordable Housing Trust to sort of discuss the same thing, the similar things that he's going through right now. Except that now he has a developer in front of him who's very, very, very serious about working with him and getting something off the ground. So I want to put everything on the table with these developments too, so we kind of understand that there's beyond this, there's other things that can happen too, because we're going to have another discussion about how we can help these things happen. So Pine Street, there is an RFP that just go out in the last month.
Yeah, because it's a partnership with the state. It has to stay open for 3 months, but they had another walkthrough, was it this week or last week? And 20 people showed up. Right. And that was the second walkthrough. So there's a lot of interest from developers, good positive interest. Right. So, we're really hopeful that will happen.
And so the significance of these two developments coming, or potentially coming on, together, is that they will be, if not predominantly, all rental. And so Chris, who's been here for a while, knows we've had a lot of conversations about this, and how do you develop affordable housing? What's the best way to do it? And not only that, what was the direction we got a few years back? If we go back to our action plan, it was all about developing affordable rental units. The reason being, it has a lot to do with the 40B situation. If you have 25% of the units are deemed affordable and are set aside to be affordable, then we get credit for all the units in the development towards our SHI. So essentially, we get more bang for our buck. And there was a lot of support from that when we pulled a lot of stakeholders together. And it makes sense. We need rental.
Right, just our general inventory is very low in rental.
It hasn't been a lot of development. It's sort of the right way to go.
And that's why we were pursuing the project
Yes.
of the Hudson Ave.
Right. So also in the action plan, a big piece of that was to try to acquire town-owned land. Town-owned land for development. And, it's an interesting point because we looked at that and we had, and at the time, we didn't know that there was other interests. Didn't really know it wasn't out in the open. We didn't exactly know that, but.
But we had that the people did their prelim with the two apartment buildings, remember?
Yes.
And the whole
Yes.
parking.
Yeah, absolutely. We did our due diligence on it. There was water, sewer, electric. There was
Yeah.
a lot of things that made sense about it. And the interesting thing is, I don't think we could have put more than 58 units in there. So you say, okay, we'd get all 58
That was a
units.
good amount.
It was, yeah, it was. And that's interesting.
58 more than we have now.
Right. So that's something but to do that and to get town-owned land, we have to go through town meeting.
Right.
The land has to be given to us.
But my point was we were pursuing apartments.
You're right. Yes, that's been our direction since we put the action plan together. And the reason being, like when you do single-family homes, and that happens in most of the developments, you get, you'll see a development of colonials going up. And there's a certain number of them that are 40B properties. They are affordable. But, you walk around with a tape measure, you're going to find out they're a little smaller. And there's rules around how you govern that and what you do. But you're always chasing your tail. Because, you build 50 houses and you're putting in, 10 affordable units. And in reality, I from my own personal perspective, there's a huge need for that intermediate housing situation for young people, police, firemen. We have a volunteer fire department as aging, and there's some young people there too, but teachers, returning veterans, and older folks too, who might want to downsize and potentially get into renting might make more sense for them. So there is this need, and generally speaking, they're not building 4 or 5 bedroom apartments. They're building 2-bedroom apartments. Now Gene's not here, and he can't. Gene Burnout, the owner of the Fisherville site, is not here, and they can't lay out specifics about exactly what all these units are going to look like. But the impression that I got was that they're not going to be building. They're not going to be 3, 4-bedroom apartments. So the benefit of that is that it is sort of that transitional housing for young couples. There's not going to be 3 or 4 kids being raised in those houses. Certainly, there's no discrimination against that, and people can't prohibit that at all. Right. But that's the tendency that happens. So in terms of housing development in a town like Grafton, where Jen and our other town officials have to face the budget crisis, they have to face that. It's arrives and it's driven. One of the main drivers of it is our inability to tackle 40B. It's probably, in my mind, in the last 20 years, it's probably been the biggest financial hurdle. It's driven a lot of what we're dealing with. A school population that's grown dramatically. There's a lot of services the town has to provide, and the tax revenue we're chasing it. So. And there is going to be, there's going to be a commercial component to some of these developments too, which I think is just gravy. It's fantastic. So there is that element to it. So it was a good conversation. Gene wanted us to come back with some more specifics, some more about what we could do and what we would be willing to do. And there's 2 main hurdles for them. There's the cost and what can happen there, and we'll table that discussion for a bit, and also who's going to govern it. I think that's a discussion that the town administrator and others can have with agencies in town, whether it's the housing authority. I'm sure that they can take on some of these units and would be willing to, but I won't speak for them. But that's one issue. So you have Fisherville, and you have Pine Street, and do we have? So Fisherville, let me just say this before we move on to Pine Street for a minute. The number that was, and again, this is not chiseled in stone, was around 260 units. It's a good sized site. And there's going to be some mixed commercial, but total of 260, and it's all rental. So.
It's all what?
Rental.
No.
At Fisherville, 260 or 60? I thought he's.
I think maybe 60, affordable units.
So 260 total?
That's what yeah, you want to check?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was significantly higher.
Pine Street would be 176 units.
And New Pine Street was that. We've had that for a while.
And that's total units at Pine Street?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's two, it's a good point. There's a couple sections at Fisherville, but I thought it was going to be significantly higher than,
Yeah, it could, yeah, we'll just
it's,
check.
it's still 60 units that, we'll verify it, but
The only reason I question it is because, so I had a conversation with Tim before I came, and as you had said, you're trying to figure out what we can do to make it for the developer to want to invest and build there.
Right.
If there's something that we can offer, and if we can put an offer on the table and let them counter it, like just to get us started, like this is what we're willing to
Yep.
do. And so Tim had suggested, it's my notes are in my phone, he had suggested, if we allocate up to 10 grand per affordable unit, depending on the investment, with a cap of 150. But so he was assuming there were 15 affordable units. that
Oh,
there
out
were
of 60.
60 total, 15 affordable.
All
So
right.
that's why, that's kind of like, so he was thinking that if we put a cap at 150, so that would be the Affordable Housing Trust's contribution, depending on investment. Certainly if, the developer makes a lot more then we shouldn't give them anything, like if they're able to make a ton of money. So, but in order to get them to where it makes financial sense for them to develop. So that was just his suggestion, to start with, and to see then to take that to the developer and have them say, no, I'd need a little more than that, or that's why it's up to 10,000.
Right.
It
That
might
makes
be a
sense.
little less than that,
Yeah.
just to give a little
but
negotiating room.
create a threshold.
Right, and that was his suggestion, but again, when he was talking to me about it, my impression was it was 60 total, 15 of
Oh,
which
okay.
would be affordable. But then we'd get credit for all 60
60.
because it's their apartments.
Yeah, which is very helpful. And that's kind of the direction I've been going with Joe as well. We had been looking at, we met with the developer at West Street. He wasn't interested in the way, he doesn't really need us, doesn't need any help. That's the one up off the Common. And we started having that discussion to see, this is what we can do. We're a small group, and, we meet once a month, and this is taking town land and developing it is a big chore. It's a really big chore. We have developers in front of us that are looking at these properties and saying, okay, what can we do here? So we do have some funds available to look at, what we're willing to do. I had a couple other things on the agenda before we could dive into that, and I think when I do, I would want to enter into executive session for that, to have a breakout conversation on what we would, around what we would be willing to do with the fees, with the funds to contribute. We had Adams Road, Hennessy 1 and 2, and this is something I might want to ask Tim a little bit more about. I didn't know if someone was going to be here tonight, but there's some issues with the property. It's currently they are set as affordable units, and Tim was asking if we would be willing to release them from being part of the SHI, so he could negotiate with the owners to clean up what they have to do and fix what they have to do. But in thinking about this, what I would want to do is to go back to him and say, because our goal is, and our mission is to retain, preserve, and develop affordable housing, but I may ask, what can we do to help them move that along? And I'll reach out to him and say, how can we help them fix what they need to do? Is it a cost thing on their end, or are they just hard set on removing the affordability component to the property? So I'd like to kind of cross that bridge first before we get too deep into it. I don't have an update on 60 Depot Street. I did put it on the agenda, but I think once the dust settles and we have our town planner in, we can kind of look at that a little bit more deeply. So with that in mind, and it is 7:24, so I'd like 20, so we want to spend some time kind of diving into this. And we're going to be talking about our funds and what we're going to be willing to do. So I think it's probably appropriate that we enter into executive session now. So I would accept a motion to enter into executive session.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Just to clarify, is it, for negotiation, we're required to give very specific reasons why we go into executive?
For negotiation purposes.
Okay, all right, just so that it's listed.
Yeah, because we're going to be discussing exactly what we talked about with Jen, what we're willing to do, what we're willing to part with, and what our finances actually are.
I just want to make sure that, you state what the purpose is.
Thank you.
Yep.
I had to.
Do you want me to
young man
amend
grab me.
my motion?
You made a motion that we enter into executive session for
For
purpose.
negotiation
Purpose of
purposes.
yes.
Okay.
And we already had a second. Yeah, I mean, basically what I'm saying, the chair, I've done this twice.
Yeah, right. Well,
To-
first
to-
we have to vote on it and then you
Yeah.
read that.
So we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to do it by roll call? Again, we have different rules and I'm not sure if,
We could,
they're
it
the
doesn't
same.
hurt, it doesn't hurt.
Okay, by roll call, so you just say your last name and
Yep.
your vote.
Cross and I.
Thomas, I.
Haynes, aye.
Williams, aye.
Colas, aye.
We're entering into discuss, executive session to discuss these matters. An open session will compromise the town's position and needs to be discussed in executive session. The chair so declares.